Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going over gaming news, November 5th through the 11th, and boy, we'll be going over some stuff with World of Warcraft a little bit. We'll be talking about Ubisoft some, we'll be talking about the day before, we'll be talking about some trends on Microsoft, a little bit of Liza P, Modern Warfare 3, an update on Stalker 2, and some Sony news. There'll be some other stuff sprinkled in there too, but hey, I hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you guys are preparing for the probably crazy winter we're going to have. It's just never been the same, has it, since 2020? It just seems like every year just almost gets worse in a way, but hopefully you guys are pulling through. I know we are, and hey, we're rooting for you over here. So hey, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see. Oh yeah, before I forget, we're gonna be having off the cuff too, so be looking for that video. It's been it's been just busy again, like it always has been. I wish life would slow down some, but I don't think that's gonna happen for a while. Maybe it'll slow down by next year. But we're gonna have off the cuff that you guys voted for. Thank you again for voting. And then we're also gonna be having the Lords of the Fallen review and an update too on the DLC that's coming. And then, oh yeah, I gotta post those off-the-cuff numbers too, so you guys can vote again. Anyway, golly, it's been busy. But hey, let's go ahead and dig into it. So during BlizzCon, which they hold every year, we heard about the next World of Warcraft DLC or expansion. It's called The War Within, and honestly, it does look pretty good. I mean, we've been fooled before, but it does look pretty good. And this has got to be the worst early access ever that they've had. So it's normally $50, but hey, if you want it 3 days early, you're gonna pay $90. That's a that's a $40 increase from what this expansion is actually going to cost. And expansions too used to be about $25, $30. Now they're $50, but they want you to pay $90 just to get an extra 72 hours of gameplay. And so that's an extra $13.33 per day for early access. That's the highest so far that we've seen in the industry. Starfield was also pretty high. You got that 5 days early for $30. That was $6 a day, but holy smokes, that takes the cake. And so unfortunately, I have talked about this in the past that I do think we're going to continue to see this trend where at least it's an option. It's not something that's forced on us, but I really do hate it because it's actually not providing anything. And the game is out anyway, and they could already launch it. But yeah, folks, you really don't need to pay that much extra, that much money. Even if it's just an extra $20, you don't need to pay for early access. I mean, we started seeing this with Hogwarts Legacy, and it hasn't backed down since, unfortunately. So I think this trend is here to stay, and overall, it's just going to continue to get more expensive, unfortunately. But yeah, $13.33 a day, that's the record so far. Also, some bad things with this is that you're not getting any patches. Usually, if there's issues with the game, that comes out on like the day one patch, but actually that comes out on release. If you buy the early access, well, you're not getting that patch so far. I mean, Starfield had a one-day release; they didn't get their patch. Well, we also had Hogwarts Legacy that didn't have a patch either. There have been a few other games, but yeah, you don't get the patch until actually release day. Or if you like Diablo 4, the servers don't even work. So you pay that money, the servers don't work, and you just wasted your money. And so this isn't always necessarily a good thing. It's not just a trend-setting thing that I don't like, but also the fact that we don't actually get an improved or quote-unquote more fixed version of the game. And then too, the servers can totally be trashed and not even be functioning. And so, yeah, folks, don't pay for this. I mean, you can if you want to. If you got some money to throw around, whatever, it's your money. But ultimately, it is a waste of money. I mean, you're not getting anything extra value. It's literally just a couple of days, and then stuff may not work either. So yeah, day one patches release on release day. Also, we heard about Ubisoft. So they can't seem to stay out of the news the last couple of years. But we did hear that Ubisoft is using AI now to generate art. And they're doing it for their Assassin's Creed game. So they have several Assassin's Creed in the works that we know of, and they're working on generating art. Not thankfully not in game, but for some of the marketing and advertising for the games that are coming. And you can tell that that it's not perfect. Most of it still looks pretty good, but when you start looking at the details, and you notice that like the fingers are on backwards on one of the hands, that's pretty hilarious. And we're talking, this is like, you know, tens or hundreds of millions of dollar type of company, and they're using AI to save cost. Now we have looked at Ubisoft's earning reports, which they only release every 6 months, I think. So we don't get them very often compared to other companies, which are quarterly. But we do know that for the last couple of years, they have had some hard times. And they are feeling the pinch, and that's why they've also made the move to just focus on Assassin's Creed and get rid of several IPs that are new, because they just want to go with what they know works. And Mirage still had a fairly good reception, even though that was supposed to be DLC for Valhalla. But yeah, now they're starting to use AI, and I gotta say too that this is not going to be going away. That eventually this is going to move to game development. Because think about it, if your employee needs to, pee, eat, and sleep, and have vacation and time off and get sick, well, an AI doesn't do that. And an AI can run 24/7. So it can work harder, it doesn't get sick, it can't have connection or server issues, but eventually it can get better at programming or faster than you can. Than just what's even humanly possible. So eventually a person can't keep up with AI. Of course, we still want the human element and the human factor in the job world, but partly generating art, quote-unquote art, AI can technically make images, and a lot of companies are doing that too. We're seeing that in a lot of the advertising for just about everything. Instead of commercials with people, there's AI there, or there's an AI voice talking about the product. Or really there's no people at all, and so people are starting to lose some of the sectors, and AI is starting to take over simply because it is cheaper. And AI and other programming, it will improve over time, whether updated or self-learning. And, we've gotten to even see this with Bing. Bing is actually getting pretty good. So unfortunately, this is a trend, and yeah, this isn't going away. So I do want you to think about your job, and the future of your career, because maybe it would be time to change, because it'd be easier to change now than actually change later when you actually get that pink slip. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I did think it was pretty funny that the fingers were on backwards on one of the hands. That was pretty hilarious. And yeah, you can look those up too. Those are all over the web. You can take a look at those if you'd like. Next is The Day Before. So this is the game that we've learned about quite a while ago. It's been years in development. It's also had its release for console pushed back, though I guess they are actually going to release it for console again. First, it was supposed to be for PC and for console, then they removed the console version. They just wanted to work on PC, and now I guess it is PC and console once again. We have gotten several gameplay footages, but each time they release some, it looks horrible than the last one. People are pointing out frame rate issues, people are saying how dull the game is, how lack of zombies there are. It really doesn't look anything good, and if you've never heard of The Day Before, you're not missing much, but the premise is that you're trying to survive in third-person view in a modern-day world of a zombie apocalypse. So think of like World War Z, or think of a game like Left 4 Dead or something like that, and that's basically the idea. But, the stuff we've seen is just like it's barely any zombies at all, which is pretty horrendous to see. We also know, too, that volunteers have been working as devs for free, or for other type of favors besides actually being paid. Technically, they are volunteering, but it's actually been quite a few people over the last couple of years really working on this project, and so the studio hasn't been doing very good. There's also been issues, too, with the head developer or whatever doing some shady marketing stuff to get people excited, or trying to get people involved and talk about it, and this has been going on for years, too. And finally, I think he got his hand in the cookie jar and he understands that he needs to really market this properly and correctly, without committing, mild forms of fraud, and also just actually making a game. So But yeah, it has been delayed again. This was supposed to come out on the 10th. Of course, it's, the 13th by now, and so that day has come and gone. And now it's delayed until December 7th. But this is only for early access. Now, this isn't paying into it to get it early. It's delayed, and it will be released as kind of like a preview or like a beta, an open beta, for you to play and enjoy and test. The studio has said that it will be a full game. And the full game will be released when they deem that it's ready. So remember, folks, this has had a lot of developer issues. This has already had a lot of problems. Fraud, or basically lying about what the game is going to be or who's involved or what's happening. And yeah, they're at least releasing something. But yeah, this is not going to be a full game. And we know, too, same with Baldur's Gate or Grounded or others, is that early access can be quite a while. It can be, 3 years. So yeah, there's no real line in sight for this, but I bet they're using early access as a way to get players to give them feedback about the game and basically get their quality testing done for free. That's my bet. And when that's happened enough, they'll finally release the game as a full game. Or it could just be like Star Citizen, where it just stays as a beta forever. Which, that would be awful. But yeah, I had high hopes for this game a couple of years ago, maybe even about a year ago, but man, it's just gotten worse and worse, and you can only get burned so many times, right? It's awful. So Microsoft is setting a new trend. So some of you have probably seen this, but we now have full screen ads when we boot up our console. So we first got this with Starfield, and this wasn't just on the home screen of Xbox. This was also on PC as well, folks, those that have Windows. And then now we've gotten to see Modern Warfare 3. Now, both Activision Blizzard, now technically owned by Microsoft, and of course Starfield is made by Bethesda, which Microsoft also owns too. These are Microsoft-owned games, and so we can probably see a trend now where when there's going to be, quote, exclusive type of games or really big blockbusters like Modern Warfare 3 isn't, we can probably see a full ad when we just boot up our console. And that's horrible. And in my view, it's kind of a invasion of privacy in a way, because you're booting up your console, maybe you're not even going to play a game, but you get an ad on the home screen that you have to interact with to get off the screen so that you can do whatever you wish to do. And that's just in your face every freaking time you boot it up. And I gotta say, Modern Warfare 3, it was every freaking time I was pretty much turning my console on, and it was getting pretty annoying there. I was glad that the game has finally come out. I'm glad it's also doing horribly, and we'll have a little bit of news about that, but ultimately we'll have a separate video just to go over Modern Warfare 3. But yeah, this trend of having full screen ads now, and again, this is not just Xbox on console, this is also on PC as well. And so this could also affect you too in the future. And since they've been doing it, there's not really a ton of feedback. There's not really much pushback, though I'm sure there will the more they do it. But I mean, how can we really stop them? We already bought the console. We already turned it on, and basically it's theirs. They can do what they want with it. We don't actually own it, folks. We own the hardware. We bought it from them, but they control what we see and what the home screen is, and etc. Kind of should give you an idea of how much we really control. And honestly, it's not very much. So we can see this for more exclusive games in the future. Let's see. Something, too, is that we're likely to see more rougher games next year. This year, we've seen a lot of really good games this year. Some really bad ones, too. Bad ones like Gollum, Redfall, Forspoken, and Modern Warfare 3. But we've had technically 26 good ones that have had a 90 or higher on Metacritic. And that's honestly pretty impressive. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all these, but I'll go through this list a little bit. And so, some of the really good ones that I agree with are like Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, and Spider-Man 2. These have been really good games. They've expanded on what they've already made, and they've improved it. They've made it better. It runs fairly good, though that's a little iffy for some folks for Spider-Man 2, but Baldur's Gate 3 was awesome, and so was Tears of the Kingdom. But we've also had some remasters this year, too. These aren't brand new games necessarily, they're just redone. But we had The Witcher 3, Resident Evil 4, and Metroid Prime. But all of those also scored 90 or higher. And we also had some DLCs, too. So again, I wouldn't necessarily call these games. I'd just call them DLCs or expansions. But like we had Phantom Liberty, which totally changed and redid the game for Cyberpunk. One of them I certainly did not agree with, and this is where we have to take professional critics with a grain of salt, folks, is Diablo 4. Technically, that got like a 93 out of 100, and I can't agree with that one because the launch was bad, the servers were broken, people paid early access for like an extra few days, they weren't able to log in, the co-op was totally screwed. The game is completely designed to just focus on getting your money. The real game didn't start until the end game. The bosses were a joke for most of people. Some of the classes were totally broken or worthless. And then yeah, we get the second DLC, and it's really not any better. I mean, this game is already done. Viewership is pretty much over on Twitch. A lot of people aren't playing it. Some people too asked for a refund back when it came out in the summer. But yeah, it's already the end of the year, and I mean, who even thinks about Diablo 4 anymore? But yeah, it was technically one of them that got a 90 plus, and that's total BS. There's no way we should be accepting that, and honestly, I'm glad we didn't. Not that you couldn't have fun, but when you got games that like Path of the Exile that are totally free, why pay $70 for a game that you're really struggling with? I mean, the fact that they couldn't even give you some extra inventory compared to some previous Diablo games that they could just patch in, it's just stupid, folks. They really just want to waste your time, guide you along a leash, and just have you go where they want you to go, instead of actually designing a game that's extremely user-friendly and fun. Remember fun, folks. Games used to be fun. But yeah, we have had a really, really good year for really, really good games. And ultimately, I bring this up because I do think it is going to be rougher next year. That's my opinion. It's some others' opinions as well, but I really have to agree that it's going to be a rougher year next year because we've had so many pushbacks. We've had COVID that delayed a lot of stuff. We had some good games come out last year too, or like Elden Ring, we had in 21, if I remember right. I think I am. And, but yeah, we've had a lot of delays, and so we've had a ton of games come out this year. We've had some games that should have cooked a little longer. But yeah, 26 games, that's like breaking a record. I don't think we've ever had that many games that have hit 90 or more on Metacritic. That's pretty impressive. I think the next closest year was like 23 or 22 games hit 90 or more. And there is a chart by Axiom, I think, that actually compiled that data. You can take a look at that chart if you'd like. And some other news, Liza P. So we'll actually be getting a DLC for this. And that wasn't expected. That wasn't necessarily talked about. But Liza P. did so well. They're going to make some DLC for the game. And they're also going to be working on making a sequel, which is great. And honestly, from the little bit I've played, because I've been busy with other stuff, I do honestly really like the game. The only thing I really wish they had is multiplayer, because I miss my buds. Or even the possibility of being able to play with you guys that watch the channel and support it. Yeah, I wish there was multiplayer, but like the game runs well, it fits well, the enemies are fun, the art style and everything, the mood, the environment, it all works very good. But boy, I get my butt handed in that game because it's like Sekiro, where you have to be really good at parrying perfectly. And they did fix some of that issue with a patch. And I got a little further. But yeah, eventually I need to go back and actually beat the first boss, because I didn't even beat the boss in the demo either. I got my butt handed. But honestly, it is on Game Pass. So if you're looking for something to kind of fill your time, that is an actually pretty fun one. But that one too is also going to be quite frustrating. So maybe don't always play it right after work. You know what I mean? If you had a crappy day, just play something else. Play something low-key like Minecraft. I know sometimes I have to. But yeah, they ended up selling over 1 million copies within their first 3 weeks, which is pretty good. And so they made over 10 million as well in their first week. And that was just on Steam. It doesn't include all the other consoles either. So yeah, they made hand over fist. And yeah, I'm glad that we'll be getting some DLC probably next year, and also that we'll be getting a sequel in the future. In other news, we got to talk about EA. So they can't seem to stay out of the news either. But we know that, hey, they kind of made like a new soccer game called Football Club, which that's how the rest of the world, besides America, we call it soccer or FIFA, but Football Club is actually used for Europe and parts of Asia. And so they made Football Club 2024. Now, we weren't really sure if this was going to kick off very good because it was a new name, it was a new brand, but EA really worked hard and did their homework. And this all came about because FIFA wanted $1 billion just for EA to be able to use their name. And EA said, no, we're not going to be doing that. Screw you. We're going to make our own game. So far, here are the numbers. Within 1 month of release, Football Club, or FC 2024, sold 14.5 million copies. That's crazy. 14.5 million. And then they also released their mobile version, FC Mobile, and they had 11 million installs within the first 10 days. Folks, people love their soccer, even more than we love football in America. I mean, football, soccer, in the rest of the world, boy, they can get crazy. They'll kill people over their team losing. It's pretty brutal if you've never seen some like Brazilian fights because the soccer team lose. I mean, they'll totally ransack the whole city because their team lost. So yeah, we might really love our football or basketball, but boy, it's nothing like soccer for the rest of the world. Something else we know too is that this is actually quite a bit more successful than FIFA 2023 was. In fact, it's so successful, the number of players that they have on the game, just FC 2024 for console and PC, is that it's actually double the player count than what FIFA 2023 had, the previous game last year. And right now, FIFA is actually dirt cheap, and so I think we can see that the whole thing with FIFA thinking they could pull a good one on EA. EA just said, no, we're not going to pay $1 billion. We're just going to rebrand it and make something else without you. And with EA being so successful, I think FIFA really lost that, because if you lost $1 billion in revenue, I mean, even if you make tens of billions a year, losing $1 billion would be a big deal. And especially with recession right now, people aren't buying as many tickets. So, yeah, they kind of losing some money a little bit. That was a bad decision on their part. And I think, too, also, Madden, EA does Madden and NFL, and the NHL, too, I think. And there's probably a few others, but I really think that there's a little bit more influence or control that EA has over the next contracts with some of the other sports. Because if they can totally get away with FIFA, then they might be able to have a little bit more leverage next contract with like football or something else. And so, bravo for EA taking the plunge. Now, I do think some things with like football here in America, the NFL and Madden, I don't think EA would have as much leverage, because the brand of the NFL is really like the teams and the players' names and stuff. And if they don't, pay for the licensing, well, they can't really use the teams. And that's a big deal. You don't have the teams, people aren't going to, or can't use like the, oh gosh. It's not the emblems. And it's not icons. It's not symbols either. Anyway, the mascots, right? If you can't use the actual team names or the symbols for those teams, then yeah, people aren't going to be happy about that. They want to play their team. They want it to be real, right? They want that licensing to be there. So maybe not as much leeway, but maybe more than EA used to have. Modern Warfare 3. Folks, we're going to make, as I said before, another video to talk about this, because I think it deserves its a whole entire thing, because it's getting quite fugly out there. But Modern Warfare 3 is in bad shape. So far, it's getting reviews of anywhere from 4s or 5s out of 10s. This is actually the worst rating or scoring it's ever had in the entire 20 years of Call of Duty. And the other one, the second worst that this one beat, was Vanguard, which had, about 7 out of 10. But yeah, most of these have 8s or 9s out of 10s, and people really like their COD. Most of us grew up with them, and we know the quality really hasn't been that good for over 5 years, but we still play them, we still enjoy them. Warzone was a new thing, we kind of enjoyed that, with the creation of Fortnite. We got a Call of Duty version of that, and some of us really enjoy that. Some of us still really enjoy and love the zombies, but man, a 5 out of 10. That is the worst rating by far. And Activision, boy, they really need to figure out their stuff. And honestly, if I was Activision, or now being Microsoft, having bought them, the worst 2 Call of Duty games have now been made by Sledgehammer Games. And it really might be time to kick them to the curb. And it might be ready, too, to just quit putting out a Call of Duty every year. I mean, again, this Call of Duty, as we'll get into, this Modern Warfare 3, it all could have been patched in, and the maps could have been a bundle. And that's it. And what even makes it worse is, Sledgehammer is like, oh yeah, this was years in development, and, man, that is a total fucking lie. That is a total lie. And I'll get all into that when I make my video for Modern Warfare 3. So go ahead and stay tuned for that. In other news, Stalker 2, we have an update. So if you don't know about Stalker, we haven't had a Stalker game for quite some time. There's been some other branches, branch-offs from kind of the idea of Stalker, like Chernobyl Light and some others. But yeah, Stalker is where it's kind of an alternative history if you don't know the story. So Chernobyl, which is a nuclear power plant, right? Basically in modern-day Ukraine. And it had an accident. And it was the worst nuclear release or radiation release ever. They actually had to evacuate a city of about 50,000 people, which is about the size of where I live. That would be freaking catastrophic, folks. It was cordoned off for decades. People have actually been able to start moving back because the radiation levels are low enough last decade. And but yeah, the alternative history with this story is that when Chernobyl happened, they worked on using the environment of the radiation to conduct experiments. And the first set of experiments, there was an incident, but they were able to contain it. The second set of experiments, something really went wrong. And this is where Stalker comes in. So Stalker 2 is looking into this. This is the first-person shooter and kind of a survival game. The game does get more difficult as you get closer to the center. But there's different anomalies, there's monsters, there's also other stalkers too, just like you, looking for special items or artifacts in the Chernobyl area. And so this has kind of interested me, and what is great is that it's coming out now, finally, on November 30th, and this is going to be on Game Pass. And so I am going to show it to you guys. I'm excited to try this. I'm going to try it as close as I can to the 30th. But I got work in there. I got overtime coming in December. I'll do my best. But yeah, this game has been technically in development since 2010. The game was eventually scrapped and started over back in about like 2014, 2016. The new Stalker 2 was announced in 2018 with a release date of 2021. The release was then confirmed for April of 2022. We then had another delay to December of 2022. We then had the Ukraine-Russian war that happened in February of 2022, and they were hoping to get it out by December, but that didn't happen either. So then they're like, well, sometime in 2023. And then in August of 23, they were saying it would be Q1 of 2024, but hey, it's actually supposed to come out on the 30th of this month. So literally a couple weeks. So yeah, I'll be showing it here on the channel. I'm excited for it. Just looks interesting. I like alternative history pieces. It should be a good time. So lastly is a bunch of stuff on Sony. There's a bunch of things that have been coming out lately, and especially quite a bit this week. So, one thing I saw was that Sony has stopped reporting PlayStation Plus numbers for their members. And so, the last 2 months, they haven't reported them. And what happened 2 months ago? They raised their prices for PlayStation Plus. So, Essentials Plus and Elite COVID Edition. And these price increases were actually quite high. I mean, we're talking like a 30% increase, which is quite a bit. And then they didn't add anything to these services. They're just like, yep, inflation, we're just going to raise the prices. Ouch. A lot of people really didn't like that. I know of a couple people that actually cut back on their subscription or just canceled it completely because life is busy anyway, and they got to save money somewhere, and so might as well cut the cord. So that's what some of them have done. I personally don't have one. Otherwise, yeah, I'd probably walk it back as well. Or I would just quit paying for it because I play a lot more on Xbox because that's where my friends are. But, so looking at some data, their subscription base has actually been pretty flat since December of 2022. And worldwide, they've been sitting somewhere between 45 and 48 million. And that's it. It hasn't really gone up or down outside of that range for 3 years now. And so they're not really growing anymore. Now, if we take a look at Game Pass, which has been around since 2015, last we saw on LinkedIn with the company, they're at 30 million. Now, that isn't as high, but from the same time of 2020, they had about 10 million, and now they have about 30. So they've had a 300% increase in the same time frame as PlayStation, where it's basically just stayed flat, bouncing between 45 and 48 million. So I really wonder kind of where the plateau is for Game Pass for Microsoft. But as I've been playing it and as games have been coming out, there's been quite a few games already this year that I've been enjoying. Liza P. Dead Space Remake is on there now, which is a wonderful one, folks. Really enjoyed that one. That one almost made the 90 out of 100 list. Almost. It was 89. Mother Hubbards. It was almost there. But anyway, we also got Starfield, which, you know, for the Game Pass Ultimate price, that's a good price, I think, to actually play Starfield. We also got Payday 3, which that one hasn't been doing so great either. We just got Redfall, don't forget that. That was a major failure. But overall, you got about 500 games now that they've been adding, and they add games basically every other day or every 3 days to Game Pass. They take some off, but they've been adding more than actually taking off. So you're getting quite a big list, and some of the games are actually pretty good. You also get EA Play mixed in with Ultimate, so you get a whole nother thing of all of the Battlefields and some of the other EA games in there, including Madden and including some others. And so yeah, it's actually a fairly good list. One thing I wish they had is if they had a better kind of look at some of the older Star games like what PlayStation does. Because a lot of those games, you can't even really buy them or find them anymore. You're paying an arm and a leg. And so it can be kind of nice to have your own service. So yeah, we'll see. You know, we need a few more years to really see if Game Pass is going to work out or not. But we've seen the most amount of growth on PC. Now, console, there's only about 40 million consoles. 25 million? I think I'm mixing up some numbers there. I'd have to look again. But we know that Xbox hasn't sold as many consoles. But I do have more friends that are jumping onto Game Pass lately this year that have thought about it and have seen what's coming out, and yeah, they'd rather buy Game Pass because it's worth it. And if you do the math, and you pay full price or you don't have a sale or anything, you're looking at $17 a month, which is about $205 a year. And if you take out the $60 you need for multiplayer, okay, well, you're looking at $145 a year. So that's basically 2 full games now. So if you're going to have 3 full games that you're going to pay for, like Elder Scrolls or something else that's going to come out, or like some of the Call of Duties now with Activision Blizzard now belonging to Microsoft, or anything that's going to be made by Blizzard in the future, which hopefully they put out something good. But yeah, you get my meaning. They have ZeniMax as well. And so a lot of these games are going to start going exclusive, and that's actually going to bolster the value of Game Pass. Now, I am afraid they'll eventually raise it to $20 a month, which, well, let's see, so that'd be an extra $36 a year. It really starts getting expensive, but still, if you just wanted 3 games a year with playing some of your older ones, it would still probably be worth it. I'm still kind of on the fence, but lately I've been leaning toward that Game Pass actually being worth it. Yeah, let's get back into PlayStation news. Something I did want to mention, Black Friday deals are starting to come out and be flushed out with the news, and so I'm going to be making another Black Friday deal. I already made one for pre-Black Friday, but that's almost over. You literally have until, I think, the 16th for some of those, and then it's going to be Black Friday after that. And then if Cyber Monday's worth it, I'll do one for that too. But so far, we've seen that PlayStation controllers on Amazon are going to be $50 instead of $75, and that's going to be for Black Friday. And then we saw too that Dell is actually offering Series X's for $450. Now the thing that's frustrating is that every PlayStation 5 that I've seen so far is in a bundle, and they're either giving you Diablo 4 or they're giving you Spider-Man 2. And with the way the sale is that basically you get the game for free, and then you get a disc drive version of the PlayStation 5 for $500. So if that's worth it to you, shop around. That's at Walmart, Fred Meyer, Amazon, take your pick. That's basically all over the place for PlayStation. But the only ones actually offering a discount for the Series X is Dell so far. And I will do a Black Friday video for that. This next one really sucks for PlayStation players. And I really fear that this is eventually too coming to Xbox and also Nintendo. So let me dig into this. We know that the PlayStation 5 is going to have a slim model. That's going to be coming out. And we know, too, that that is going to become standard, and that the current disc version of the PlayStation and also the digital version of the PlayStation aren't going to be made anymore. It's just going to be the PlayStation 5 Slim. Now, this also does not have a disc drive. What is nice, sort of, is that you can buy a disc drive externally to hook up to your PlayStation 5 Slim. But that's another $70. So now your console, if you want, can cost $570. Isn't that nice? But it gets better. This disk drive needs to have an internet connection to be paired with your console. I'm not even kidding. So when you connect the hard drive and you turn your console on, you have to have an internet connection to your console so that the hardware can be paired with the motherboard in your console. Isn't that screwed up? Now, luckily, you don't need to have a constant connection, but you still have to have a connection for the initial pairing. And I have never heard of this before. This is crazy. This is like adding a hard drive or the disk drive or adding extra RAM or putting in a new internal, something. It blows my mind. It's like, why do we need to have stuff paired with the console? And unfortunately, this already happens in Xbox since Xbox One X. And so, I've already been running into this issue, I do some electronic repair a little bit. I don't do it as much anymore because the parts are just so expensive. Most people tell me no. But when looking at One X and Series S and Series X, the motherboard, the little board in the disk drive, is paired with the motherboard in the console. And so if you're going to if you need a new board in your disk drive, or you need a new disk drive, technically you need to buy a whole new motherboard too that's already been paired with the disk drive. So Sony is really just following Xbox on this. And this really sucks because that just makes it more difficult and more expensive to repair. Because the motherboard, that's the most expensive component. It's not the RAM, it's not the CPU. It's actually the motherboard. That is money. Money, folks. I mean, we're talking like $100 minimum. But I think right now for a pair for a new hard drive and a motherboard for Series X, it's like $200 and some once you add shipping. And that's just getting the part. That's not including labor and everything else. And at that point, you might as well just buy another one. We also know that the hard drive, the internal hard drive for the Series X is also paired with the motherboard. So let's say your internal SSD goes, it's over, right? You got to make sure that you buy another internal SSD and that has already been paired with a motherboard. And so again, this makes it harder to fix, harder to replace, and when these components start failing, people are really going to start to figure this out, and it's really going to piss people off because now your price just tripled on how much it's going to cost because you got to add labor in there too. And these consoles are not getting easier to take apart. They're getting more difficult, unfortunately. And the little ribbon cables and everything, I mean, and you're supposed to have a clean room and all of this stuff to actually do these repairs, and also make sure there's no static in the environment. But yeah, if you even goober up a little bit, you can totally destroy your console. So it is important, folks, unless you really know what you're doing or you're really willing to take the risk, you let someone else actually work and fix your console in the future if you ever have to do that. Also, too, the external SSD for the Series X and Series S, it also has to be a particular SSD. You can't just buy any SSD you want and play your games off of it. It has to be the one by Seagate, and it's a very specific one. And there is a deal right now for one of them on Best Buy, I believe, for $150 instead of $220, and that's a good deal. But if you're planning on getting some other SSD to plug into the back, and there are some out there, but they're scams, folks, because you cannot play games directly off of those. You have to transfer the files to your internal hard drive in order to play them. So don't even bother. Unless it's the Seagate one, don't even bother. But yeah, if you want the 2 terabyte external, which eventually I'd like to get, which there is a sale on that too, you can get that at Best Buy for $250 instead of $440. So you're saving about was it $280? I'd have to look again. But there is a sale on Black Friday. But again, it's got to be that particular Seagate SSD. Otherwise, it's just going to be a waste of your time and money. But yeah, this is also becoming a trend. This started back with Apple when they paired their camera to the motherboard in their phone. I forget what phone it was. I think it was the iPhone 15. And it's just like, wow, what an Apple thing to do, right? Well, it's not just Apple anymore. Again, when a trend is accepted, and especially in the tech world, well, it just becomes the new thing and everybody starts to do it. And so we had Microsoft after Apple, and now we have PlayStation. So folks, when trends happen, be sure you got to vote with your money. You got to say no. And eventually, when there's enough of us, eventually the company changes. And we still have some stories about that, and I'll be bringing that to you in a later iteration, like Modern Warfare 3. But yeah, we gotta vote with our money. Because honestly, whatever we accept is gonna continue to stay in our hobbies, in our families, in our technology, in our cars, etc., at our jobs. The trend is gonna stay if we accept it. And you gotta stand up for yourself and others. Otherwise, it's not your life anymore, is it? Everyone else is making the decisions and you're just playing along. So yeah, that's a horrible thing. Also, the PlayStation Slim is going to have new covers, so the old covers aren't going to fit. And we do know that the PlayStation Pro is going to be coming out next year. PlayStation 5 Pro, but we don't know if it has a built-in disk drive. So yeah, we don't know that yet. Hopefully it does. Some of the, I don't forget if I mentioned this or not, for Black Friday deals, some of the PlayStation 5 bundles with Diablo and with Spider-Man 5 actually have a disc drive with the console. So you might want to get one of those. Last piece of Sony news is that there was an investor meeting, and the head of PlayStation was basically saying that 6 out of their 12 live service game titles are going to be delayed to ensure that the games are high quality and are basically going to sell well. This is after what's happened with Bungie, with the layoffs, and with Destiny 2, which they saw a 45% drop in revenue. And then also, this in turn delayed the final shape 4 months. It's now going to be, I think, June of next year. And then also, this has delayed Marathon for an extra year. And so, 6 of these titles, we don't know all of them, but yeah, 6 out of the 12, half, are going to be delayed until 2026 at the earliest, or later. Now, this honestly starts getting into, I think some of these games are going to be delayed until the next gen comes out, because Sony has expressed that the next gen is probably going to come out sometime in 2027 or 2028. And Xbox is probably going to release their next-gen console sometime around there, too. They always do. They're usually within a year of each other, and one of them usually comes out first before the other. It's kind of a race. But yeah, I think some of these games are going to be delayed until the next gen. That's horrible. But hey, at least Sony is finally paying attention, because they bought a company for billions of dollars, and now their company is totally tanking within a year of buying it. So I'm glad they're at least paying attention. Again, folks, if we withhold the money, the companies have to pay attention. This isn't just gaming companies or publishers. It's all of them, because the customer is what makes the business exist in the first place. And remember that if you run a business, and remember that if you're an employee. You are what make the service or product good and the customer happy. And if the customer isn't, then you basically lose your company or lose your job. Because if the company can't make enough money, they're not going to keep all the employees, and they're going to let go the ones they can. And that's happening right now. That's what we saw in Bungie. Hey, we've lost 45% of our revenue. We can't keep this going. We got to delay Marathon. We got to delay the final shape. And we need to cut 8% of our workforce at Bungie. That sucks. But I don't think we're done with layoffs either. I think this is going to perpetuate well into next year. So that's all I got for you, folks. Sorry, this is probably a long one. Let me take a look. Yeah, 47 minutes. I'll make it 49. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Of course, you can always, please leave a comment if I missed anything or anything that you find interesting. You can like and sub, all that jazz. But also, more than anything, share, folks. Please share. I think the algorithm right now on YouTube's kind of pissing in my Cheerios. I don't like it very much, but it's really hard to get my stuff out there. And yeah, ultimately, you guys can help. I would appreciate that very much. You can always find me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee, where I live stream. And then all of my live streams are archived on YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. So again, folks, keep an eye for some of the Black Friday deals and sales out there. Some of the pre-Black Friday sales are still running. And then, yeah, Cyber Monday is going to be right after that, which is going to be more like Cyber Week. But yeah, you can always keep track of that. So yeah, there's headsets, and two, I do have a pre-Black Friday deal if you want to take a listen to that. If not, that's okay. Like I said, it's mostly over. There will be another Black Friday video soon. But I'm only going to promote the stuff that I know is generally pretty good quality. So there are other deals that I'm missing and skipping, but I want to provide you the best and consolidate the sales and not really waste your time with stuff that might break within a year or a couple of years. I don't really want to provide that type of a service. I want to provide the best service that I can. So with that, folks, thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.